Good evening, everybody, and welcome to A Real Point of View. Tonight, we have a subject that is kind of interesting, we thought. Um, that's times when you are really interested in a movie, you've seen the trailers, you're really ready to see this movie, the advertisements have you going, and you're thinking this is going to be a great film. And then the thing they don't show you is this. Some materials may be inappropriate due to the hype. Some movies are overrated. So we're going to talk about movies we felt that were overrated. We're going to go to an older movie and a newer movie and give you our idea of what we thought was overrated. Um, Too much hype for a movie. These advertising companies that are brought in to help market the films sometimes kind of go overboard, maybe. Or maybe it's the films themselves. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today in the films that we'll be discussing here on The Real Point of View. Hi, my name's Greg Morgan, and I am the film critic. I am the real movie guy. And joining me on our little panel here is Miss Karen D, and she's the movie maven, and Mr. Stephen C. He is the man that doesn't pick a bad film. So tonight, films that are overrated, films that have too much hype. So I'm just going to mention the films that I've decided to utilize for tonight's show, and then we'll kind of do a round robin in that regard as to what films you guys have, and then we'll get started. So I decided to actually take one actor with the films that I've chosen tonight, and that's Tom Cruise. Now, I'll be honest with you, I kind of like Tom Cruise. I'm a big action film guy, so Tom Cruise is definitely in the realms of that action adventure kind of thing. But the movies that I chose today, one is an action-packed film, and the other is a little more subtle, but interesting in itself. The movies I chose were the older film was Eyes Wide Shut, which actually came out in 1999, and the newer film is The Mummy, which actually came out, I guess, technically 2017. So those are the films that I decided to utilize, and Tom Cruise, ironically, for some strange reason, is the focal point for both films. And so let's go with you, Karen. What films did you decide to utilize for tonight's show?
Well, my first film from my older period is The Magnificent Ambersons. It came out in 1942. And my second film is The Grand Budapest Hotel. And I can't remember exactly what.
I think that's
That's
2016.
2014.
Oh, it's 14. Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was that. I thought it was more recent than that even. Okay. And how about you, Steve?
The two movies that I chose I feel like could get some internet controversy going if this really reaches like a mainstream group. Um, Rogue One, a
What?
Star Wars
I
movie,
mean,
and Titanic.
What? I just wanted to echo like Karen. I didn't
Like,
want to be left out on that one,
I'm
Steve. Sorry.
not gonna lie. Karen's actually seemed very genuine right there.
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
it
and mine was
was.
fake. Mine was really fake, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yours was.
But I
Yours
think
was.
it's still,
Whew.
I still think it probably marveled up to really close to her. So just saying.
I'll give you credit.
Okay, there you go. That's what I was looking for. Thanks, bro. Because the fishing rod was coming back a little. It wasn't jiggling around like it should be. Thanks, bro. Thank you. It's a bass. Okay. So let's get into some of these films, guys. I'm real curious, Steve. Before I jump into mine, Titanic, really?
Yeah, Titanic. Don't get me wrong. I love the movie. I love the fact that, of all the Titanic movies that they've done, all the recreations, all the homages through, other films and stuff like that. They did a really good job with the movie. The problem is, for me, it's a very, very generic love story movie. And you have elements, you see the ship, and you see the ship in all of its glory, and you see the the way things went down with the ending and things leading up to it, kind of in between stuff. But the story, of course, focusing on Jack, who is basically a poor guy trying to travel to America, live the American dream. He ends up winning his tickets in a poker game, literally right as the ship is about to leave for the day, and obviously never return. Also, one thing they did is really telling a story without, we all know how this ends.
Yeah.
So you have to, I feel like they didn't make the ending as much about the ship coming apart as they could. I felt like they focused a little bit more, watching it now versus watching it then, on Jack and Rose, as everything's going on. And there's little, you could have spent, in and out like 5 minutes of watching the ship come apart, even though you did see what was happening, and then the flooding, and with the basements or the lower floors flooding up, and people traveling up, the rats trying to travel up to try to get out from under the ship, because everybody knows there's always rats on a ship. And
Especially new ones, obviously.
The chaos of trying to get off on the boats and get out and get out to sea and save as many people as they could. And you also see the just what's the word I'm looking for, the stupidity of, I'm gonna say stupidity of not giving the ship enough lifeboats, not really being prepared if something was going to happen. And they did a good job pointing it out. The problem is this revolves so much around Leonardo DiCaprio's Jack Dawson and Kate Winslet's character, that it kind of takes away, in my opinion, from the splendor of the ship and the sheer size, the fact of what it was as a modern of the time miracle of construction, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
But and then you don't really get as much as I would like about other characters that are on the ship. You get little, you get little pieces, but they have to interact with Jack and they have to interact with Rose in some way, shape, form, or fashion, or they're not really, vital. They're not really important. Or Jack and Rose have to be running through the scene in order for you to really get some depth to those characters.
So, do you think they, in the midst of trying to make this love story, this romantic interlude throughout the film, do you think they misstepped in that it wasn't viable enough, it wasn't believable
Yeah,
enough, not enough,
I don't.
not enough depth
Well,
in the midst of trying to facilitate this romance, not enough depth in character for it to actually truly pull it off, so that it really emanated the whole film and it made you truly want for these people to live. Because I'll be honest with you, there are parts in it myself that I didn't really care that much, and that's sad.
right.
Yeah.
Honestly, the actual romance, the love story between Rose and Jack is done well, if more over the top than 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 you really needed in this movie. Like, if you want us to believe that they're in love, there's a couple things, like there's just a couple roundabout things that you could have, not like the ending. The ending bothers me so much, and it's now rather than later. Oh, good job. The ending, the ending with her. Um, oh yeah, spoilers if anybody's not seen Titanic.
Oops.
Uh,
Wait a minute,
the
does the
ending with
ship
her.
hit an iceberg?
Well, further than that to the ending, further ending. Like,
Well,
further. We're like
here's
10. We're like 20 minutes past the end of the. Speaking of which, this ship sinks.
here's the thing.
And
We
it's like
talk.
30 minutes of the movie.
This is a historic. It's like a historical document. We know what happens with regard to the Titanic is a historical event. that is something that's in our history books. Even no matter what school you went to, at some point, the Titanic is part of that conversation. So it's not a true spoiler that if it hits the iceberg. What the
Right.
spoiler is what happens with the romantic
What what happens afterwards?
interlude, or yeah, what happens with the lure of the romance is the issue here, um,
Right.
and not enough of
Um.
the famous people either. So that's very interesting.
Yeah. The one with her being on the plank, there's plenty of room for him on that plank. So that's an internet beef with the movie. My problem is I don't feel that you needed the ending where she seemingly goes to sleep and or dies in her bed, like the old lady Rose at the very end, and then
Uh-huh.
she's depicted back on the ship, walk going through the main one of the main halls into the dining area where you have the gigantic chandelier and the big staircase, and all the people that died on the ship are clapping for her as like, yay, you're dead, good job, or whatever it happens to be. And then there's Jack at the very top of it. I just feel like that was a little bit, too overdone as an ending. Now, at the time,
Mm-hmm.
it was amazing. I feel like aging wise for the film, that's not, it's overdone. It's a little bit. The characters that I cared more about in the last 30 minutes of this movie, in this 195-minute movie, are the band on the deck that's playing while everybody is losing their minds. They
Mm-hmm.
understand what's going to happen. They understand that they're not going to get on the lifeboats, and they're just playing music as the boat is sinking, trying to get some semblance of relaxing these people or giving them something to hang on to. And I find myself in the last 30 minutes going, they're not going to live, but really, honestly, I could care less about Jack or Rose.
Yeah, and that bothered me because it seemed that part of that romantic essence was going to be a little bit more prevalent
Mm,
in the sense of trying to develop it more. But because they tried to develop it a little and then segue to so many other people, and then trying to, as you said, trying to tie them all in together, it just made it a little bit harder for me to truly focus
right.
on the film.
And a couple more things that I really don't like. One, Billy Zane, who plays Cal in this movie, Cal Hockley in this movie, is the fiance of Rose as this movie begins, and still technically is toward the end because she never at any given point in time breaks it off with him, or says it. Um, his bodyguard's name is Mr. Lovejoy. And let me
Mm-hmm.
tell you, this guy just sucks any love and or joy right out of the room. I feel like that's like a Clash name, but whatever you wanted to go with. Two, at the end, when Rose is on the ship, they've been saved, and she's avoiding Cal. She's avoiding how his stare while he's trying to find her. Now, at points you see in this movie where he's not the most respectable person, and he's not a good person in the least, but he's either A, genuinely looking for her in this like travesty that has happened. He's trying to see if she's still alive on this ship, and she is paying him no attention whatsoever. She's not looking at him, she's not seeing anything. Or it could be just he's looking for that heart of the ocean jewel that Rose was wearing when she told Jack to paint her like those French girls. But I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say he was genuinely concerned for her, which makes Rose a dick. Spoilers.
Wow.
But yeah, I just like I now uh, the movie's budget was $200 million, and the box office draw was $2.187 billion worldwide. So on the internet. But that's just kind of how I feel about the movie.
Yeah, trying to keep this as much PG as we can here, Steve.
That was pretty PG.
Okay.
For me.
Maybe passe, but not necessarily PG.
Okay, we'll go with passe.
All right. Well, what about you, Karen? What have you got in store for us?
Well, I thought you were going next, Greg.
Oh.
Hey, Greg, you're going next. Good job.
Yeah, you're going next.
Ah. Yeah. Okay.
Fine.
Well, all right then.
Karen does what she wants.
I see.
You don't run the show.
I see. Well, we never did that, did we, Steve?
Oh, jolly, you guys.
Jolly good. All right, so, hey, back to Tom Cruise again. you know, despite all the crazy things that, go around along with Tom Cruise, whether you like him or you don't like him, whether he's political or he's not political, whether he's Scientology or he's not Scientology, all those crazy things that make up Tom Cruise. The one thing about Tom Cruise, he's a really good action movie guy. And that's what was the first part about this movie, Eyes Wide Shut, or Eyes Wide Open.
Eyes Wide Shut.
Eyes Wide Shut. Open Shut. It didn't matter in this movie because you wanted to close your eyes after they got to the, okay, this is one of those crazy films where a husband and wife are trying to find each other, I guess. Nicole Kidman is actually starring in the movie opposite, at the time, her husband, Tom Cruise. So this was an interesting endeavor because part of the hype about this movie was they're in the movie together and there were going to be some, sensual kind of sexy scenes and maybe a little bit of, not wearing a whole bunch of nothing. Well, the big hype about them acting together, they really weren't acting all that great in this movie. So that didn't really matter. So that's part of the hype that made the movie overrated. Now, some critics felt that this was a decent movie. It was too much of secrecy, undercover secrecy for things that really didn't need to be all that undercover and all that secret. Just call it orgy and orgy. That's what this movie was. A lot of, this is the secret they're trying to, this doctor, in his relationship with his wife. You find out that the biggest thing about this whole situation was she had an affair. Whoop-de-doo. Look at where they were. Who cared? Big deal. What's to get upset about the affair when we're having like 20 of them here, And now we're all getting into a situation where it's, some crazy things are happening and we done got ourselves into a real bad mix now. We should have just stayed home and dealt with it. But no.
You're so right.
We got to go to this big old house and deal with it there. And we're thinking, hey, this is going to be, a little singles kind of, sexy good. And then I'm not going to be a spoiler for the film in case no one's seen it. But things ain't exactly right at this house. That's all I'm saying.
I almost wish you would spoil it. It doesn't sound like a film I want to see.
I'm telling you.
I don't remember it being it that bad, but I'm angry now. I can't believe I wasted time watching this movie. It's so overrated.
It was so overrated. I spent time watching that movie, and I was actually at the end of the film, I was like, oh, okay. And I spent so much time watching it, and I was thinking, there's got to be more. Oh, there's not. Yeah. Tom, please. Another Mission Impossible, please. Please.
And then we got, let's see, when this movie came out, I think we got 3 more.
Yeah, thank God. Because this movie, sometimes you just got to stay in your lane. And Tom Cruise's lane is action, thriller, suspense. Nicole Kidman, I'm still trying to figure out what her lane is.
She's got multiple lanes. She may have more lanes than Tom Cruise, actually.
Mm.
Oh, we got a.
Well, she wasn't proving it by this film. Let's just say this was a lane she should have kept shut, closed.
Maybe she should have married Tom Cruise.
Well, that seems to
I
not be
mean,
really good for all the people that have married him.
judging
Let's
from
look
the
at all the different,
divorce,
because he had three wives as far as I know, and none of the three of them really just kind of their careers just kind of just jumped out on the page like yeah.
you know what? It was all because of religious indifference.
Okay, I'll go with that, Steve. How about you, Karen? What do you got? What have you got in store for us now? Which of your films are you going to talk about?
Well, I guess I'll talk about my most recent one first. And my most recent overrated movie is called Grand Budapest Hotel.
I thought that was a really good movie. What
Yeah.
what didn't you like about it, Karen?
Oh my God. I don't understand. I failed to understand when this movie came out. When I saw the movie because I love Ray Fiennes. The movie stars Ray Fiennes, but it's like one of those, from a British point of view or from a European point of view, it's one of those blockbuster movies because everybody and their mother, practically, who's a major film star from the European standpoint anyway, managed to find a part in this movie. Not only does it star Ray Fiennes as M. Gustav, F. Murray Abraham is in the movie as Mr. Mustafa. Adrian Brody plays Dimitri. Willem Dafoe is Joplin. Jeff Goldblum is Deputy Kovacs. The movie also has Harvey Keitel, Jude Law, Bill Murray, Ed Norton, Tilda Swinton, Tom Wilkinson, Owen Wilson. I mean, and a host of others.
I really liked Ed Norton in there, by the way.
Bob Balaban even manages to find a part in this movie. So, like, I mean, at least if you're a man, there's a part for you in this movie somewhere. So, so anyway, it's this movie. It's, I guess some critics have described it as a movie within a movie because there's sort of like the overlay where there's this sort of mansion that's seen better times and a woman who, you know, was part of the mansion in its heyday, but then it sort of morphs into this story where there's a writer who's trying to figure out what's going on with the mansion, but then he finds out about this story about this young man who's an apprentice to another writer, and it's like, okay, that's cool, I guess, but this was a comedy, and I sat there watching this movie thinking, what is funny about this?
Well, was it the
No, rhetorical question. I sat there watching that because nothing was funny about that movie. To me, this movie is the perfect example of a movie sort of gone awry or run amok because somebody said, wow, this is really cute. And we're just going to keep doing this cute thing because it's so darn cute. And it's like, no, it's not that cute. I mean, you know, saying stupid things just because you think they're quirky doesn't make them any less stupid. And, you know, and running around like a chicken with your head cut off because somebody said, now that's comedy. You're still a chicken with your head cut off. And to me, this movie was a succession. I mean, I just have this one image running through my mind of the apprentice, that poor guy running to do something that Ray Fiennes' character would tell him to do. And it was some bizarro thing. And I'm like, this is starting to border on emotional abuse. Or certainly labor abuse.
Kind of like the Keystone Cops Go to Budapest.
Yeah, whatever. it just drove me crazy. It's like you're trying too hard to be quirky. Wes Anderson is behind this movie, and to me there was so much effort put into being quirky that it wasn't charming. It was, some critics said it was charming. I'm not among them. I didn't think it was charming at all. I just thought it was nonsensical.
So you say it's overrated.
Completely.
You know, that movie got a lot of publicity. It really did. And it actually, the trailers that I saw on television made me want to take a look at more trailers. So I went online and see additional trailers. I thought that was really quirky, but it's one of those films where the trailers were the movie. And whatever you're looking for to solidify and make that movie much more viable, it was hard to find because, oh, I don't know, Ed Norton kept coming up out of the ground. That was part of it. That was kind of weird to me. But anyway, yeah, it was a strange movie.
Amazingly enough, it was nominated for numerous Academy Awards. It was even nominated for Best Picture, which made me gag. Fortunately, it didn't win. Um,
I was
it
thinking about the gag part. Fortunately, that didn't happen.
it did win Best Motion Picture, Comedy or Musical at the Golden Globes, and I remember going, I can't believe you people are awarding this claptrap with, well, it's the Hollywood Foreign Press. What are you going to do? But then it also won Academy Awards for Best Achievement in Costume Design and Best Achievement in Makeup and Hairstyling, which is the Academy's way of saying, eh,
Fluff.
yeah, exactly.
Cool. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I always play about the film saying it was really, really good. It was just quirky. It was a very quirky film. And after the first 15, 20 minutes, it's very redundant. And so
Yes.
you don't want to
Thank
keep going
you.
through all that over and over and over again. It was like cute. It wasn't even really funny. It was just cute the first few minutes, and then it just got, the repetition of the theme just, and a bad theme was just, yeah. When I saw it was nominated for a Golden Globe and the Academy Award, I was shocked.
Hmm.
Totally shocked. So, Steve, what else you got for us, brother?
You said something very profound just a few seconds ago. Well,
What?
probably about a few minutes ago, that has to pertain to this next movie. It
Uh-oh.
does pertain. You said the trailer is the movie.
Yes, sir.
That's what you said about the Grand Budapest Hotel. Yeah, that's what I want to see, the Grand Budapest Motel. That sounds like a good movie.
That's going to be a movie
Obviously,
short.
in Karen's opinion, it might be a better movie.
It might be.
But the next movie I'm talking about, the trailer wasn't in the movie. And the reason for that is because when they did the screening, when they did, deciding on time, when they did deciding on certain things, they cut a lot of stuff out. And they actually went back and reshot a lot of scenes in the movie. And I feel like now, again, this is my opinion, the box office would hugely beg to differ. Like, budget for the movie was 265 million, and it got 1.056 billion dollars in the box office. So obviously, I'm the idiot here, as Karen would tell you. But
Never.
She would allegedly tell you.
Allegedly, the movie I'm going to talk about is Rogue One. The Star Wars movie Rogue One.
What?
Well,
And
I never.
Overrated?
There's a lot of things in this movie that I like. There's a lot of things in this movie that bother me to no end. Basically, for the movie, we're getting the origin of the Death Star. We're
Right.
getting the answer as to where the schematics and where the understanding of how to destroy the Death Star came from. We're getting an early introduction to certain characters that are in. I believe it's A New Hope.
Hmm.
Is that the
Hmm.
no? Yeah, A New Hope.
Hmm.
The actual first Star Wars movie. And I feel like a lot of characters in this movie are underused in this movie. One character, for instance, an actor that I really love is Forrest Whitaker. In the trailers, even the in last trailers that they started to show, when they had finished the reshoots of the movie, they were basically still using scenes from the first like 3 or 4 trailers that they released, and you basically got little to nothing of that in these movies. He appeared to be more of a teacher, more of a father figure, more of a he was a resistance general, uh, and he was someone you could look up to, someone
Hmm.
you as an audience member could appreciate his character, and they they basically kind of, well, not kind of, they turned him into a rebel extremist
Hmm.
and a guy who's been through so many battles, who's sustained so much damage. He's missing one of his, like, below the ankle. He's missing one of his feet. He has an oxygen thing that's attached to his breastplate on his armor that he breathes through. He's got that wily-eyed, crazy look that Forrest Whitaker is always known for. But he doesn't seem as much of a teacher as he does just the insane general that's kind of throw bodies at it till it dies. He really appears, and you can instill a lot of belief in what you do as long as you're successful at it. Um, the Donnie Yen's character, I actually do like about this. His name was Cassian. Um, the thing that I don't like is when there's a Imperial droid that's been reprogrammed, K2SO. When you
Hmm.
have him and Donnie Yen has that fighting, which honestly I believe he's a Jedi in this movie, but they never say it. But he's one with the Force. He believes in the Force, even though he's a blind character. He can feel the presence of the Force around him, and he uses that to help him with his fighting, with his judgment calls and things like that. But he's a to kind of a witty one-line character that
Hmm.
has more comedy or comedic value to his character than he actually has, something that would, minus his fighting ability, but someone that would have a great wisdom about things going around. Um,
He shows flashes of it.
and he shows flashes of it. He does, but it's 10 lines of comedy to 1 line of
Yeah.
wisdom, and I just feel like they kind of reduced his character in a way that's not really beneficial to the story, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Some of now, not counting his action or the scenes where Donnie Yen is being Donnie Yen.
Hmm.
They don't. I don't feel like they did a very well job with that. Droid K2SO is part of the whole movie. Well, the second best part of the whole movie. The hallway scene at the end of the movie is the best part of the whole movie. But you have to wait to the end of the movie to get to the best part, which I think is pretty bad. I need something to really keep me entertained as I'm going through this movie.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, K2SO is the complete and total opposite of a cowardly like C3PO. Straightforward. He's very
Assertive.
assertive of himself, and it plays in him very well. But he's also got the comedic one-liners, and it fits his character to be able to do that because he's an Imperial droid, and they say it at the very beginning. It's part of his programming. He just says stuff, whatever comes through his circuits,
Hmm.
and it's amazing some of the things the timing of words and support or whatever else there is in this. Do a really good job, and you like him from the get go. Um, Jin, uh, Urso. I don't really care for her character because you don't get enough at the very beginning to justify her being the hero. Like, she's got that tragic story, which all Star Wars heroes and heroines have. You have to have a tragic backstory. Somebody had to die. You had to kind of be an orphan. It's a thing, or almost an orphan. And she has all that, but she really at the very toward the end of the movie you get it, but or toward the middle of the movie you get it, but toward at the very beginning of the movie you don't really have a feeling of, why should I care about this character? Why should I care that this character continues on? Except for the opening scene, and you're from the opening scene you're told to care about this character. I don't develop a care for this character.
Yeah, I think they wanted originally to, in my opinion, I think they wanted to have us view her as a reluctant hero.
Mm-hmm.
But yet she didn't do anything that was very heroine-like, so why would we even think that? And
Right.
then when it gets to the point where they're saying, well, it's either this or that, either you're going to do this or we're going to put you away or put you in jail. She's like, okay, I'll do it. But even then, automatically, it's like she has for lack of a better way of saying it, an immediate sense of oh, what is it? She's gung ho for the force all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
She has this immediate sense of country, this immediate sense of I need to do this for my people. When before that it was like she wouldn't care, didn't seem like she cared about anything. And so it's thrust upon us, it's thrust upon her, and then all of a sudden she has this moral compass, and that was not believable.
I
If they
I
had brought the latter
completely
part of the film earlier in the film, then maybe I'd understand it a little bit more. But they put it so toward the latter part of the movie that we didn't have enough time to envelop to truly embrace it
mm-hmm.
before all the other things that happened at the end without being a spoiler. We didn't have enough time to embrace it. Had that been 15 minutes earlier, then maybe we'd have been a little more credence to it. So I agree with you. Yeah, it was a little more. Uh,
Also, yeah, no, I completely agree with what you're saying right now, and that is one of my major, we'll say beefs with this movie. Um, the movie's runtime is 133 minutes, and they cut stuff out. We know they reshot things. Um, I feel like because it seems very rushed.
mhm.
33 minutes of a rushed movie. And it really seems like a filler style of movie where, hey, we don't have the movie that we're supposed to give you, so we're giving you this. And this
But
movie should not be 133 minutes.
that's
It
how it
should be
felt.
it should be shorter or longer.
No, this movie should be a 2 hour movie. This movie should
120
be,
minutes.
yeah, this, no, not a 2 hour movie. I apologize. This movie should be like Titanic.
Oh, a
You know,
3 hour movie.
Titanic has that long run time, and they try to, they're doing everything with this love story and everything, and they're giving you every single piece of this love story that they can possibly shove down your throat through the entirety of the movie. Where Rogue One needed that runtime to do a better job developing their characters, developing a transition of trusting each other and willing to go that extra mile for each other, for
Hmm.
Jin really believing in the alliance and everything they were trying to do. Um, she watches because of what the job was in the beginning. She's not even truly upset. Uh, well, she's not truly upset with the death of someone she's been trying to look for.
Hmm.
And even though you see it and she wants to be, it's just like, hey, we got a job to do, let's go.
Yeah,
And there's
yeah.
no sense of a grieving period. This person who she lost when she was young, and she has been trying ways to find and get back to, and you know, holding on to the belief that they're still alive, and then taken in an instant when they finally, when you make that contact and that relief lifts off your shoulders, there's no grieving period. Like the grieving period is just, hey, you know, just so happens you suffered, I suffer too. Now let's go do this.
That didn't ring true to me either, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, and it's this movie needed that. Not 2 hours. This movie needed to be closer to a 3 hour movie.
Yeah, I think when it was being advertised, it made me feel like, oh, this is going to be this really cool segue, or like you said, it's a filler. You know it's going to be a filler, but I felt it was going to answer some questions, and it did not.
And it does.
It didn't answer as many as I thought it should have. It gives us.
Correct.
It gives
that
us.
Is my problem.
It gives us the understanding of the Death Star and the particulars and what they were trying to do. However, developing a storyline to embrace even that wasn't really done, and I think it rushed us through to get to, especially to get to the point that it did. It really rushed us through because I didn't have that cohesiveness or that not just trust, but I didn't have that affection for anybody.
Right.
And throughout the other Star Wars films, as you come to know the characters that we are given to understand and to know, we understand the fight and we understand what they're going through a little bit more, and we have a better affinity for what's really going on in the community of this revolution, and what the players are trying to achieve too. We didn't really get a sense of that in this movie, and so that made it for me. I agree with you. It didn't. It promised a lot and didn't give it to us.
And you really see that a whole lot in the very beginning of the movie, where you know it's moving too quick, because it'll be, you know, hey, this is the planet. It'll show the planet, and then it'll go to a short scene involving that planet, which is maybe at most 3.5 minutes long, and then bam, you're at the next planet, and then it'll be a short scene that's maybe at least 3 minutes long, and then you go to another planet, then you come back to what they're doing in the second one, or the first scene or something, and it's like hey, this is all happening at the same time, but you're not doing a good job, like the other Star Wars movies have done, of telling you this is happening at the same time. Watch this transition into you knowing that this is happening at the same time. I feel like the movie's overrated.
That's a good point. I was actually somewhat disappointed with Rogue One. I mean, I was ready for this just awesome movie, and I rushed to the movie theaters to see Rogue One. I was very happy to spend money on this movie. And at the end of, I mean, I thought, well, it's a good movie, but it left me strangely unfulfilled. Like it's like, is that all there is? It's like, there's a better story here that should have been told, and it just wasn't quite told.
Yeah.
They spent money on an epic movie, and we didn't get an epic movie.
Yeah, we just got like the E.
Yeah, we got the E, basically.
Yeah. And
so that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, well, I can't disagree. I think, I mean, because I actually felt like it was overrated too. I like The Force Awakens much better. Much better.
Well, let me jump into my film and not try to take up too much time. And we're back to Tom Cruise once again.
No.
The next movie had a lot of ads out there. I mean, movie was really marketed hard for us to get to see it. And one of the reasons why I think they did such a good job in marketing with regard to this film was that the title itself has too much history to it. Going back to even maybe probably way before Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff, um, those great films of that era in the classic Hollywood. We're talking about how many movies with The Mummy as the title, which is the title of this film, The Mummy, have come across our viewing eyes and our parents' viewing eyes, our grandparents' viewing eyes, over and over and over again, trying to get this story of the mummy right or straight or whatever. Now, in the 19 I think it was like 1990s, Brendan Fraser did a movie called The Mummy. He did a movie series that had, I think it was like a trilogy of films, and they're actually pretty good.
First two.
I actually liked them, and they were actually fun to watch. So here we go, Tom Cruise taking on The Mummy, and I'm thinking, okay, Tom Cruise action. The Mummy's the previous Mummy movies within the last decade or two were a lot of action packed, and you figure how's it going to be all this action with the Mummy, but they figured it out. And the Brendan Fraser films were really pretty good and were steeped in a little bit of uh, of a collective effort to put this story together. And then we have the 2017 version of The Mummy, starring Tom Cruise and Sophia Botella. Now, I don't know if you know who Sophia Botella is. She is the woman who actually um, does all this action-packed stuff in the movie The Kingsman, and she is Samuel Jackson's right-hand person, and who, of course, was one of his expert killers. Well, in this movie, she's the princess of Egypt, who is going through all these really crazy ritual thingies, trying to make her way because she's a really dark-hearted woman when she was alive, and so it doesn't make her any better when she's dead and now trying to come back from the dead, and using Tom Cruise as part of her resurfacing. She needs him to enact her total terror and horror. That in itself already tells me that this is not going to be that great. So I decided to take my chances. Like Tom Cruise, I'm going to watch The Mummy and see how it goes. It lost me right away when the mummy was a skeleton chasing him down the alley and using rats to help trap him. Yeah, that kind of messed it up for me. This movie, a lot of hype for it to be a better movie. It was nowhere near as good as the previous Mummy movies, the ones starring Brendan Fraser, which I really enjoyed and actually were a lot of fun. They were kind of adventurous. This movie lacked a lot of that. Wasn't actually that well acted, in my opinion. And so, in the middle of this movie, guys, I bailed. Just being honest.
You traitor! You
You know,
deserter!
I bailed because it wasn't worth my time. You know, a lot of things that go on with our lives. We try to utilize our lives the best we can, and especially for those of us who are film critics who truly enjoy film and truly enjoy the essence of film and trying to find the really good films for our viewing audience out there. And ladies and gentlemen out there, this is not a movie I would prefer you not watch this film.
No.
Because I think you have better things to watch out there than this. And Tom Cruise, I appreciate you as an actor and all, but this wasn't that film for me. No, don't do it. Don't hang out with the rats. Don't hang out with the guys who are trying to find things and they're mummified right away. And they use all kind of tricks and things in here, mummies, zombie. I mean, it's like, no. No, this is a waste of your time. And if I looked it up in IMDb, I look at IMDb a lot. Not saying that I always agree with IMDb, but I thought IMDb rated this movie too highly, and they rated it a 5.5.
Ouch.
And for them, that means it's a pretty bad movie. Just saying.
Uh, I have
No
two
rant,
things to add.
no rant, no rave. Just it just wasn't. I couldn't do it.
I have two things to add.
Go for it, Steve.
One of them is a question. Okay, now with this Mummy movie coming out, they were trying to take a page of Marvel's and trying to use this movie to create a dark universe. I mean, this is actual common knowledge. They're trying to create the dark universe. They tried to use the Mummy as a stepping stone to try to continue to push things out, and create this entire Avengers like setting. I guess maybe something worse. Do you now, knowing how we all feel about the Justice League movie?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that viewing this movie as going into a dark universe, or viewing the Justice League as going into Batman versus Superman and going to the Justice League universe, do you feel that this is the only thing that says DC did it better?
Oh,
That's a loaded question. I dare you to answer that one.
Well, here's the thing: just truly being fair and trying to take that question into a true scope of the question. That remains to be seen. I don't think I want to answer the question, but I don't think I can yet until I see the movie. The trailers that we've seen so far really aren't that bad, but I think one of the problems I have with it is Batman. And I know Bruce Wayne, it makes sense in the sense that Bruce Wayne is a millionaire, so therefore he can go from place to place to place and quote unquote recruit. But at the same time, I think the world is falling apart. And he's taken a long time, just in the trailers, to find people and get them to understand and convince them that the world is falling apart. Like they don't see it themselves. And yet somehow they're not really paying attention and trying to do anything. Like try to find him. Try to find each other. Try to find anybody or any entity out there that has some ability to fight this terror. It's like the world's falling apart, but it's waiting until the Justice League gets together, then totally fall apart. So
the world's falling apart for plot purposes, and that is all.
Right. And now, in retrospect to watching and looking at in comparison to the Marvel, it was falling apart, and you see it's falling apart, and you see different things that are falling apart gradually as it goes. And they're trying to play catch up because the world is already falling apart, and they're trying to piece it together. In the trailers that I've seen so far with regard to the Justice League, the world is falling apart, but it's like it's waiting and it's on a hiatus until Batman finds in some fishing town Aquaman, and he's trying to discuss with him, and nothing's falling apart. He has the time to sneak into the lair, we'll say, the probably the teenage room of Peter Parker, and try to figure out, I mean, not Peter Parker, I'm sorry. What's the Flash's name?
The Flash.
What's his name? It's
Billy something, but it's
Billy. Flash. Yeah, Billy Batson or some. No, it's not Billy Batson. That's one of the. But anyway, the Flash, this kid who has this wonderful ability, and yet nothing's happening. Somehow they're surviving. Everything's cool. It's kind of copacetic. So until I see the movie, that's about as critical as I'm going to sound right now. And I could probably answer that question once I see the Justice League. The one, and I think we've mentioned this on the show before. The one sobering factor for the Justice League is Wonder Woman. Now, Wonder Woman's movie, single movie, was a good movie. It was not a great movie. It was a good movie, but it was 10 times better than Batman versus Superman.
Oh
And the
my
best,
God, that
and
was
the
so
best,
true.
and the best thing that was, what was the best thing in Batman versus Superman? Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman.
So if the Justice League is going to be Wonder Woman and the boys, I don't think they're going to save the world. Not saying I don't have any confidence in Wonder Woman, but she can't do it alone. And so far, the supporting cast ain't flattering me. I you know, of the recruits, Cyborg maybe, and ironically, the guy in the ocean.
Oh yeah.
Aquaman actually looks kind of good, except when you look at the trailers, it sounds like a guy who's in a surfing movie, and the next word out of him is going to be dude.
I will ask my second question off camera.
Like, all right, that's good. All right, dude.
Because we're in Gregorant land.
We are.
I'm just saying.
He wasn't ranting, and then I have summoned the rant.
You did some of the rant. It's a Gregorant.
I'm just saying.
Release the Kraken.
Release Aquaman. Because he's cracking me up.
Wow.
I apologize to the audience.
I don't. I love Gregorant.
So the Mummy was just not solid.
Well, you know what? The best part about the Mummy was the beginning. I didn't have any more.
I was like, enough said. Well, obviously you didn't have any more. You didn't finish it.
Oh, I did. I finished it.
Oh, did you? Thought you said you got up and walked out.
I meant the beginning.
Oh, so good. Okay. So good.
Alrighty then.
I gotta stop, or else we'll never finish the show.
Perhaps it might be time for me to move on to my movie.
So, Karen.
Oh, well, I don't know. Let me ask you a question, Karen. Are you going to tell us who's in the movie?
I thought I might.
There's
a
pattern. There is a slight pattern developing on the show tonight.
A snarky pattern, I might say.
Oh, yeah. I'll take it later. Cool. Go for it, Karen.
Yes, I was going to tell you. What's your point? Why did you ask me that?
I'm coming down right now. I'm coming.
Are you now?
His rant.
I see.
I don't know. If she says it, I may go no.
Oh man. Well, my next movie, in a totally different direction, because like I said, we were supposed to do one older movie and one more recent movie. So my older movie is called The Magnificent Ambersons. This movie came out in 1942. It's directed by Orson Welles, although I'm not entirely sure he would want to take credit for it. Also Robert Wise, and it was written by Orson Welles. Joseph Cotten actually wrote some scenes, and it's based on a novel by Booth Tarkington. So this movie, I'm telling you, if there was a perfect storm of things that converged to turn what should have been an absolute masterpiece into dreck, this is what happened with that movie. And I say this in spite of the fact that this movie was nominated for 4 Oscars, one of which was Best Picture for 1943. Agnes Moorehead was nominated for Best Actress in a Supporting Role, and she's probably the best part of this movie. It was also nominated for Best Cinematography and Best Art Direction. So anyway, the Magnificent Ambersons is about this wealthy family who is sort of caught in a changing world as America transitions from the 19th century into the 20th century. So you have the Ambersons, the wealthy family. They have this son who's very much spoiled. He plays George Minifer. George Minifer is played by Tim Holt, and Dolores Costello plays Isabel Amberson Minifer, and Agnes Moorehead plays Fanny Minifer. Fanny Minifer is the spinster aunt who lives in the Amberson household. Doris Costello is the matron. Ray Collins plays Jack Amberson, who's the head of the household. So Orson Welles actually had a role in this movie too as the narrator, sort of presaging his wine narration commercial days, I guess.
Can I do that after you're done, by the way?
What?
The commercial.
Sure. Absolutely. But anyway, Ann Baxter and Joseph Cotton play father and daughter. Joseph Cotton plays Eugene Morgan, and Baxter plays Lucy Morgan. And they are sort of these nouveau riche people who buy a mansion in the same neighborhood with the Ambersons, and the Ambersons and the Morgans sort of their stories mesh. Tim Holt, who plays George Minifer, falls in love with Ann Baxter, who plays Lucy Morgan. And so the families are thrown together. At the same time, Dolores Costello falls in love with Joseph Cotton. And that was after her husband, Ray Collins. I'm sorry, I'm using their real names, but it was after Jack Amberson passed away. They had kind of a loveless marriage, but they stuck together out of duty. And but she actually knew Eugene Morgan from an earlier point in her life, and they actually were in love, but didn't get married for other reasons. So they met again when their families were thrown together, and after Jack Amberson dies, Isabel and Eugene start falling in love. However, George Minifer, the son, is not at all happy with this prospect, and he goes to elaborate lengths to keep his mother and Eugene Morgan apart, although he doesn't want anybody to stand in the way of his romance to Lucy Morgan. So that's kind of like a skeletal version of what's going on in this movie. Why was this movie overrated? Well, for one, the bar was set extremely high. Remember, this was Orson Welles' second movie. His first movie was, guess what? All together now.
Citizen Kane.
Citizen Kane, yes. And how many times have we heard that's the greatest movie ever made? So, and it was a truly great movie. And Orson Welles was the boy genius. He was only in his 20s when he made Citizen Kane. So he makes Citizen Kane to extraordinary acclaim. And then he comes along, and of course, RKO Studios is like, what's next, Orson? Because I know it's going to be amazing. And he's like, I think I want to do The Magnificent Ambersons. They're like, sold. You've got $1 million budget, which was unheard of in 1941.
Oh, yeah.
For a couple of reasons. Not only because RKO was a relatively small studio. Remember, the big studios were United and Paramount and GM. RKO was a tiny player. They did B movies. So RKO is trying to up their profile, and if Orson Welles kind of wanted to cast his lot with them, that was awesome for RKO. So they said, yeah, we will scrape together $1 million. If that's what you need, you got it. But that was crazy. RKO was crazy because RKO was really too small a studio to front that, to live that large. But also, we were in the middle of World War II. Okay. And so the overall consciousness of the country was definitely going to be at loggerheads with this kind of sort of period piece that was really about something that wasn't terribly relatable when we were in the middle of a world war. So the movie had that going against it. Then what you also had was Orson Welles was starting to believe he was starting to become a legend in his own mind. So, I mean, and he was already sort of an enfant terrible to begin with. I mean, on
What
what?
the heck does that mean?
Oh, I'm sorry. He was already
No, je parle français.
enfant terrible. That's French for he was a spoiled brat. He was already it was like dealing with the terrible twos to begin with on Citizen Kane, when he would basically shut the production executives out of the studio. He wouldn't show them dailies. He didn't do anything that you were supposed to do when you were making a movie. He didn't adhere to any of the rules. And he got away with that because he made a great movie. So now we have the Magnificent Ambersons, and he's like, well, I can pretty much get away with anything I want because after all, I did on Citizen Kane, and look what happened there. So he takes this $1 million budget and he does something unheard of. One of the things he did was, instead of having a soundstage to reflect the mansion, so a soundstage would have like a wall, different disjointed walls, and then with the way that you shoot the camera, it looks like a full room, but it's because of tricks of the camera. It really isn't a full room there, because why would you waste time doing that when you just need a soundstage? No, Orson Welles insisted that a complete mansion be built. So it was. Here's another example. The typical way that Snowfall was filmed was that the typical trick was to get cornflakes and paint them white and have cornflakes all over the place, or drop them from higher level or whatever. But cornflakes were used. Cheap, and it was effective. Orson Welles was like, no, that's not real enough. I need actual snow. But they were in LA, so even Orson Welles couldn't ginny up actual snow in LA. So they went to an ice house and filmed there. And everybody got a cold except for Orson Welles. But, it's like, okay, so he, and I guess you could say that it certainly looked realistic, because one effect that he was able to get, I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze, but one effect that he did get was that because they were in an ice house, there was actual cold condensation breath coming out of the actors' mouths, which is not something you would see in LA because it doesn't snow in LA. So I guess, yeah, you got that. And a lot of the camera shots that were done were actually extremely artistic, but was the juice worth the squeeze? Probably not. But the unkindest cut of all was that they made a cut of the movie, and then Orson Welles, excuse me. I said the unkindest cut of all, and I got choked up because of the tragedy of it all. But they did kind of a cut of the movie, and then Orson Welles, hats off to South America, because he has another project to work on. So he's off in South America. Meanwhile, the RKO has this thing, and they're like, oh, what do we do now? Well, they kind of workshop it. They kind of focus group it. And people were like, we don't like this movie. Well, they focus grouped it with a bunch of teenagers, which was probably not the right group, but that's what they did. And people were like, we don't like this movie. It's really depressing, and it's really awful. And, ooh, these people. So RKO's like, crap, we've got a bomb on our hands and we have $1 million in. We've got to do something. So let's recut this movie. So they chopped it up into 1 million pieces. Even like one of the best things, like Agnes Moore, like I said, the best thing about this movie is probably Agnes Moorehead's performance. And Joseph Cotten's an awesome actor, but she just takes everybody to school in this movie. She is so good. But even her best scenes were actually hashed together pieces from different takes.
Wow.
So even that was not a unite that was not a her best scenes were not developed from cohesion. It was just kind of the luck of the draw. It was just luck that it happened that way. So you have that, and you. I mean, the movie RKO spent $1 million, which was unheard of in 1941. They lost $600,000 on this movie.
Wow, that's man, especially back then, that's like $7 million.
Right, especially in wartime too. In wartime,
Lord,
and
Sean.
there were attempts made to work with Orson Welles, who was in South America. There were attempts made to send Robert Wise, who was the film editor, but also the uncredited director, to South America to get with Orson Welles so that they could figure out a plan. He couldn't travel to South America because of wartime traveling restrictions, so that never happened. And then there were rumors that Orson Welles was trying to sent his comments about the rough cut that Robert Wise ended up putting together, except that one of the other producers would never answer his telegrams or his calls, so they never really got the comments. Um,
Wow.
and they had what was should have been a much longer movie ended up being like 110 minutes. The other biggest controversy about the movie was the ending. When the movie was focus grouped out and people didn't like it, RKO said, okay, the ending was very somber, and audiences generally said, well, this is just too somber. It's just too sad, and we're already sad. So I don't want to be any sadder. I just won't go see this movie. So RKO was like, crap, we've got to do something. Let's have a happier ending. Ironically, the happier ending that they fashioned was closer to the ending that was in the novel by Booth Tarkington. But most critics agree that if they had let the original ending stand, that would have been much more true to the vision of the movie, and it would have made it a much better film. Like, people would have gotten over the fact that it was somber because it was a much better movie. What was workshop was much better than what actually ended up being shown in the theaters. And sort of slapping a happy ending on it was kind of like putting lipstick on a pig. Was basically what happened there. So and that it just didn't work. So, and then, all these accolades, it's, fine, but I'm sure it was a bitter pill to Orson Welles, because he knew what movie he wanted to make and he knew what the movie should have been, but part of it was his fault for leaving. I mean, granted, he had another assignment, but there are ways to work things out. He left the scene of the crime, and so they got to do what they wanted to do, cutting, pasting, whatever, and he wasn't there to stop them. One life touches so many others, as I say in It's a Wonderful Life, and when one is gone, it leaves an awfully big hole. There was a big hole in the Magnificent Ambersons.
Not so magnificent. Huh?
Not so.
Very Amberson, but not magnificent.
No.
And somehow we were able to get a movie that had my last name in it. Now that's interesting. In the characters, Morgan.
Yes, I know. That's pretty amazing.
It is amazing. Usually we hear J.P. Morgan or Morgan Horse, or, we didn't get any of that this time. It's just romance we got with the Morgan name this time. I think that would make it better, but that would still be hype because it's this movie.
Right. Right. Right.
So obviously there's a lot of movies out there, and there's no way, and we'd have to live another lifetime to get all the movies out there that have been overrated. But just to give you an idea, we mentioned some of these films, and I'll be honest with you, if we go just to Tom Cruise alone, Vanilla Sky, it was pumped up to be this really good movie. Oh, it was horrible. Far and Away was an okay film, but again, here's the combination of both Tom Cruise and his former wife trying to be the young lovers in this film, and talking about immigration and class stereotypes in this film, and it almost worked. This film talks about the Sooner uh, ability. What is it? The Sooner um, run to get land in Oklahoma for immigrants and people trying to get a new stake in life, and how many people were injured and killed just trying to race to get land. Um, that was probably, sadly, one of the more sad parts of the film, and actually one of the best parts of the film. And so this was another fail. So there are just so many movies out there that have that epic fail. Um, and it's wonderful to know that there's even a myriad more movies that have an epic success. So we just wanted to throw some movies at you, ladies and gentlemen, that we felt were a little overrated.
Little.
Yeah, a little overrated. Can't see my hands now.
This much.
This is a we overrated. And I'm still going, ladies and gentlemen, still going. You see my shoulders lifting, still going. Overrated films that just didn't do what they were hyped to do, and which is entertain. So if you have a chance to see these movies, don't. Um, is the message that we're trying to say to you, trying to not so much prevent but save you from wasting your dollars and your time on films that just won't come through for you.
Or just be
So
advised that it's not what you were told it was going to be. It's somewhat less than that, and you might be okay with that. Like Rogue One is not a bad movie. It just could have been so much better than it was. It's just there was less to it than met the eye. That's the problem with Rogue One. And The Magnificent Ambersons, it's still regarded as a good movie by most critics, but it's not it given what it could have been, it's a tragedy of a movie. But even if you don't put that sort of veneer on it, I mean, it's engaging. It's a period piece, but it's just, it's not nearly as compelling. It's just not. And Orson Welles, especially at that point in time, was all about making compelling movies that said something, that told a story for a very profound reason. The profundity just, it misses. There isn't much profundity here.
yeah, and The Mummy wasn't a bad movie. It was a really bad movie. So that's a little different than what Kieran is saying to us right now, and so much so that Steve's monitor fell. That's how bad The Mummy.
Yeah,
Um,
there you go.
yeah, and
Blown,
indeed, and
blown.
Eyes Wide Shut. Well, you know, obviously it's one of those movies that you really have to keep your eyes open to see. Um, but very immoral, this film. Not one of the better films by either Nicole Kidman or Tom Cruise. Um, but again, this is not a character reference in actors. There are films that actors get into that don't always pan out. And sadly for Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise, this is that movie. So that's two films I mentioned, this one and Far and Away, where they acted together. It was probably a good idea not to do that often. They did a racing movie together also. Can't think of what it is off the top of my head. Something with speed in it.
Right.
With Robert Duvall. Robert
Right.
Duvall. What was it again?
No, Days of Thunder.
Days
Days
of
of Thunder.
Thunder.
That's right.
And if you say Days of Thunder is a bad movie, I'm gonna beat you at work on Monday.
I wasn't saying that. I'm just saying that actually what I was alluding to was that was probably one of their better films together. Um, and it's a good film. But again, um, you know, 1 out of 3 ain't that great when it comes to
Meatloaf
when
would
it comes
say
to
that
percentages.
that math works.
Well, he would say that's not bad.
No, he
I know.
said two out
He
of
said
three, and
2 out of
Two out
3
of
ain't
I was
bad.
like,
yeah.
Meatloaf would agree with you.
Oh
Yeah,
yes,
one out of
yes.
3 is terrible, apparently.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
just god
it's
awful.
not great. That's for sure. So, well, ladies and gentlemen, those are our films for the night. Um, we hope you enjoyed our banter, and will come visit us again here at A Real Point of View. I again am the real movie guy. We have the movie maven and Stephen C., the man who doesn't pick a bad movie. Now, I tried to put Steve to the test. We were talking about films, and so the movie that I saw, that films that Steve suggested I see. What was it? It has "pray" in the title. What was it?
Let Us Pray.
Eat, Pray, Love.
No.
No.
Let us pray. Let us pray.
That was a joke. I know that would never be suggested.
Not by Steve.
Right.
But I have to say, even though I didn't think it was a great movie, it wasn't a bad movie. So Steve is still doing well with his. He doesn't pick a bad movie. It wasn't a bad movie. It wasn't a bad movie. Oh, I heard an echo. It wasn't a bad movie, but it wasn't a great movie. So we'll leave it at that. Steve is still on the throne of his word with regard to not picking a bad movie.
But I also picked to the audience. Be better. I cheat the system. Like this is not a movie I would suggest to Karen, because I know Karen would not enjoy this movie. She does. I feel like she wouldn't, definitely not like the style of movie this is.
And I agree with you. She wouldn't. Oh, Karen's right here with us.
Yeah, I'm in the
room. She's in the room. She's in a room. We're all in the room. It's not the same room.
She's right there.
I'm right there. Yeah. Wow.
Well, Karen,
modern science.
Well, if Karen were here, Karen was here to listen to us talking about her, she would realize that this was not a movie for her. So don't worry about that one, Karen. I watched it for you.
Yeah, this is me not arguing with you.
And I'll attest to the fact that it's not a bad movie, but it definitely is not a good movie for you. So that's just protecting our associate here in moviedom. So
yeah, because then I'd have to quit.
What? So anyway, we'll come back with some more quirkiness in our next looking at films. Our next journey into film soon. We hope that you enjoyed our banter, and we appreciate you listening to us. Thanks again for hanging out with us here at A Real Point of View. Check out our archives at 2 locations. One is Blog Talk Radio under A Real Point of View, and also our more current home, which is the YouTube channel of A Real Point of View. So thanks again for hanging out. Have a wonderful night. Enjoy your weekend. Try to see some really good films out there. And do us a favor, try to avoid the ones we talked about today as you go through your music journey. So enjoy and have a good weekend, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.